The envelope sat on her kitchen counter like a coiled snake waiting to strike. Amara Thompson had walked past it 3 times already. She had made coffee. She had watered the small plant on her windowsill. She had reorganized the dish towels in the drawer by the stove. Anything to avoid touching that envelope. But she couldn't avoid it forever. Her hands trembled as she finally reached for it. The return address read Gene Trust Laboratory, Atlanta Division. 8 weeks ago, she had spit into a tube and mailed away her DNA, hoping to find answers to questions that had haunted her entire life. Now those answers were here and she was terrified. The paper inside felt heavier than it should. She unfolded it slowly, her eyes scanning the scientific language until they landed on the results section. Genetic match detected. 99.97% probability of first-degree biological relationship with Kensington family line. Amara's knees buckled. She grabbed the counter to steady herself, her vision blurring with tears that she couldn't explain. Were they tears of joy? Of anger? Of 20 years of confusion finally making sense? The Kensington family. She had cleaned their toilets since she was 8 years old. She had served their meals, washed their cars, pressed their clothes, and organized their closets. She had been told she was an orphan whose care had been generously covered by the family's charity. She had been told to be grateful. And now this paper was telling her she shared blood with them. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from her husband Jerome, working late again. Don't wait up. 3 months ago she would have believed him. 3 months ago, before she found those documents in the Kensington library. Before she started noticing the lipstick on his collar that wasn't her shade. Before she realized that everyone in her life had been lying to her about everything. Amara set down the paper and walked to her bedroom window. From here, she could see the distant lights of the Kensington estate on the hill, the mansion where she had spent her childhood scrubbing floors and being reminded of her place. Her place. She almost laughed at that now. If this DNA test was real, her place was not as their servant. Her place was as one of them. Maybe even above them. But she needed more information. The DNA test showed she was related to the Kensington line, but how? Was she William Kensington's niece? His cousin? His daughter? The thought made her dizzy. William Kensington had died 5 years ago, a massive heart attack at 62. He had been a stern man, but there were moments over the years when Amara caught him looking at her with something that seemed almost like sadness. Like regret. She had never understood those looks. Now she wondered if she was beginning to. His wife Constance still ran the estate and the family business. Constance, with her perfect blonde hair and her colder-than-ice stare. Constance, who had never once called Amara by her name, always just girl, or you there. Constance, who had made sure Amara understood every single day that she was nothing. The Kensingtons also had a daughter, Bridget. She was 30 years old now, a year younger than Amara. Growing up, Bridget had sometimes tried to be friendly, but Constance always shut it down. She's the help, Bridget. Not your friend. Not your friend. But what if she was more than that? What if she was family? Amara's mind raced back to the documents she had found. She had been cleaning the library, dusting the high shelves, when she knocked over a box that had been hidden behind old books. Papers spilled out, and one caught her eye, a legal document showing a payment of $50,000 made to a woman named R. Thompson, with the memo line reading simply for the child. R. Thompson. Amara's mother was Ruth Thompson. She knew almost nothing about her mother except that name and that she had died when Amara was very young. The Kensingtons had told her that Ruth was a troubled woman who couldn't care for her child, and they had stepped in to help. But that document told a different story. It told a story of a transaction. A purchase. Amara had been sold. The realization had hit her like a punch to the stomach. She wasn't a charity case. She wasn't rescued. She was bought and paid for like furniture or livestock. That was when she decided to take the DNA test. She needed to know the truth. She needed to know who she really was and why her life had been stolen from her. Now she had the results and they only raised more questions. She heard Jerome's car pull into the driveway. It was past midnight. Working late, he said. She used to believe that. She used to believe a lot of things. He walked in, not even trying to be quiet, and found her standing in the kitchen with the paper in her hand. "What's that?" he asked, his tone casual, already moving toward the bedroom. "Nothing," Amara said. "Just some mail." He didn't even look at her. He didn't notice her tear-stained face or the way her hands were shaking. He just walked past her like she was invisible. Like she was nothing. Like she had always been nothing. But not anymore. Amara folded the DNA results and put them in her purse. Tomorrow she would find a lawyer. Tomorrow she would start digging into the Kensington family history. Tomorrow she would begin uncovering every secret that had been kept from her. And when she had all the pieces, when she knew the whole truth, she would make them pay. Every single one of them. She didn't know it yet, but the truth was darker than she could imagine. The betrayal was deeper. And the person she trusted most in the world was at the center of it all. But Amara Thompson was done being invisible. She was done being grateful. She was done being the girl who got sold. It was time for her to take back what was hers. Amara had no memory of her mother. Sometimes she tried to conjure something, a scent, a voice, a feeling of warmth, but there was nothing. Her earliest memory was the Kensington estate, standing in the massive kitchen at 3 years old while a woman in a black dress told her this was her new home. "You will work here," the woman said. Her name was Miss Patterson, the head housekeeper. "You will earn your keep. The Kensingtons are generous people. They saved you from a very bad situation. Do you understand?" Amara hadn't understood. She was 3. But she nodded anyway because the woman's voice was scary and the house was so big and she didn't know where else to go. For the next 20 years she understood everything. She understood that she was to be awake before dawn to help prepare breakfast. She understood that she was to be silent and less spoken to. She understood that she would eat her meals in the kitchen, never at the family table. She understood that she would attend the local public school while Bridget went to private academies, but her homework would wait until her chores were done, no matter how late that made it. She understood that she was less than. The other staff members came and went. They were paid employees who went home at night to their own families, their own lives. But Amara lived in a small room in the servants' quarters. She had no family. She had no life outside those walls. She belonged to the Kensingtons the way the furniture belonged to them. She remembered the first time she asked about her mother. She was 6 years old. She had seen other children at school get picked up by their mothers, had seen them get hugs and kisses and questions about their day. That night, while Miss Patterson supervised her floor scrubbing, she asked, "Where is my mother?" Miss Patterson's hand had come down fast, a sharp slap across the back of Amara's head. "Your mother was a nobody who didn't want you," Miss Patterson said. "The Kensingtons took you in out of the goodness of their hearts. Don't ask about her again." Amara never did. But she thought about her. Late at night, in her small room with the slanted ceiling, she imagined a woman with kind eyes and a soft voice. She imagined that her mother had wanted her but couldn't keep her. She imagined that somewhere out there Ruth Thompson was thinking about her daughter and hoping she was okay. These fantasies were the only comfort Amara had. The work was endless. By 8 she was doing laundry. By 10 she was helping cook prepare meals. By 12 she was cleaning the entire West Wing by herself. Her hands were raw from chemicals. Her back ached from scrubbing. Her feet were sore from standing all day. But she never complained. She didn't know she was allowed to. Constance Kensington rarely spoke to her directly. When she did, it was to criticize. "You missed a spot on this window. These sheets aren't folded correctly. Why is there a water stain on this glass?" Amara learned to be perfect because anything less was unacceptable. William Kensington was different. He was quiet, often away on business, but when he was home, he sometimes looked at Amara in a way she didn't understand. Not cruel like Constance. Not indifferent like Bridget. Almost sad. Once, when Amara was 13, she was serving dinner and accidentally spilled water on the table. Constance started to berate her, but William raised his hand. "It's just water," he said quietly. "Leave her alone." Constance's face went red with anger, but she stopped. Later that night, Amara found an extra dessert left outside her door. She never knew for sure who put it there, but she suspected. These small kindnesses confused her. If William Kensington cared about her at all, why was she still a servant in his house? Why didn't he send her to good schools or give her proper clothes or treat her like a human being? She wouldn't learn the answer to that question for another 15 years. When Amara was 18, she asked Constance if she could go to college. She had good grades despite the limited time for homework. She had dreams of becoming a nurse, of helping people. Constance laughed. "College? With what money? Your mother certainly didn't leave you anything. And we've already spent a fortune housing and feeding you all these years." She shook her head. "No, you'll stay here and continue working. That's what you're good for." Amara's dreams died that day. She stayed at the estate for another 7 years, watching Bridget go to college, go to Europe, go to parties and galas and vacations. Meanwhile, Amara scrubbed and served and stayed silent. When she was 25, she met Jerome. He was the estate's new accountant, brought in to manage the family's finances. He was handsome and charming, and he smiled at her like she was a person. He asked her name. He asked about her life. He told her she was beautiful. No one had ever told her that before. They dated in secret at first because Constance would never approve of the help dating the accountant. But eventually, Jerome said he loved her, said he wanted to marry her, said he would take her away from this place. Amara said yes. Of course she said yes. He was her only chance at a real life. They got a small apartment. Amara got a job at a local hotel as a housekeeper, the only work she knew. Jerome kept working for the Kensingtons, but he promised it was only until he found something better. That was 6 years ago. Jerome never found something better. He kept working for Constance, kept going to the estate every day, kept coming home later and later. And Amara kept thinking she was living a better life, even though it felt exactly the same. Now she knew why. Now she knew that Jerome had just moved her from one form of captivity to another. Now she knew that he had never loved her, he had used her. Now she knew that everyone around her had been lying from the very beginning. She was never an orphan. She was never a charity case. She was William Kensington's daughter. And they had all stolen her life. The library had always been Amara's favorite room to clean. It was quiet there. Peaceful. Walls of books from floor to ceiling, a massive fireplace, leather chairs that smelled like history. Sometimes, when no one was watching, she would pull a book from the shelf and read a few pages before putting it back. Small stolen moments that made her feel like more than a servant. She never expected those books to reveal the truth about her life. It was a Thursday afternoon 2 months ago. She had gone back to the estate to pick up some documents Jerome had forgotten. He had given her a key for emergencies, though he asked her not to come by too often. Constance doesn't like unexpected visitors, he said. But Constance was in New York that week and Bridget was at a spa retreat. The house was empty except for the minimal staff. So Amara decided to take her time, to walk through the rooms she had cleaned for so many years and remember. In the library she noticed dust on the highest shelf. Old habits made her grab the step ladder to wipe it down. That's when she saw the box. It was pushed far back, hidden behind ancient volumes of encyclopedia that no one had touched in decades. A simple cardboard box, unmarked, sealed with old tape. Amara shouldn't have opened it. It wasn't hers. Nothing in this house had ever been hers. But something made her reach for it. Something made her pull it down and set it on the desk. Something made her break the seal and look inside. Papers. Dozens of papers. Legal documents, letters, financial records. At first, none of it made sense. Then she saw her mother's name. Payment in the amount of $50,000 to Ruth Thompson for relinquishment of parental rights and custody of minor child. Amara read the words 3 times before they sank in. Relinquishment of parental rights. Minor child. Ruth Thompson. Her mother hadn't abandoned her. Her mother had been paid. Paid to give up her baby. Paid by the Kensingtons. Amara's hands shook as she dug deeper into the box. There were letters, handwritten, on yellow legal paper. Mrs. Kensington, I am begging you. Please let me see my daughter. I will do anything. I will sign whatever you want. I just want to see her one more time. The letter was signed Ruth. Amara felt the room spin. Her mother had wanted to see her. Her mother had begged to see her. And the Kensingtons had said no. There were more documents. Medical records showing that Ruth Thompson had died of heart failure at age 24, just 1 year after Amara was taken. The doctor's notes mentioned severe depression and grief. Ruth Thompson had died of a broken heart. Amara sank into one of the leather chairs, papers scattered around her, and sobbed. She sobbed for the mother she never knew. She sobbed for the life she should have had. She sobbed for 25 years of being treated like property when she was someone's beloved child. But why? Why would the Kensingtons pay for her? Why would they keep her as a servant? What possible reason could they have? Unless, the thought came to her slowly, then all at once. Unless she was connected to them. Unless Ruth Thompson had been connected to them. Unless there was a reason Constance Kensington wanted to keep her close but never wanted her to know the truth. Amara gathered the papers and put them back in the box. She took photographs of everything with her phone. Then she placed the box exactly where she found it and left the estate. That night she ordered the DNA test. And while she waited for the results, she started watching her husband. Jerome had always worked late. She had accepted that. But now, with her eyes open to the lies around her, she started to notice things. The way he smiled at his phone. The way he showered immediately when he came home. The way he had stopped touching her. She didn't say anything. She just watched. Then the DNA results came. And everything fell into place. She was a Kensington. She was William Kensington's daughter. That's why Constance had paid Ruth Thompson to go away. That's why Constance had kept Amara as a servant, to humiliate the evidence of her husband's affair. To punish an innocent child for her father's betrayal. Amara had grown up in her own father's house, cleaning his toilets and washing his clothes, and he had let it happen. He had looked at her with those sad eyes and done nothing to save her. The anger that filled her was unlike anything she had felt before. It was cold and sharp and clear. But she wasn't ready to act on it. Not yet. She needed to know everything first. She needed to know how deep the betrayal went. So she followed Jerome. It was a Tuesday evening. He said he was going to the office to finish some reports. She waited 10 minutes, then got in her car. He didn't go to the office. He went to the Kensington estate. Amara parked down the road and walked through the grounds she knew better than anyone. She knew which windows to look through, which rooms would be lit at this hour. She found them in the downstairs study. Jerome and Constance Kensington. Together on the leather couch. His jacket off, her blouse unbuttoned, their mouths pressed together. Amara stood at that window and watched her husband kiss the woman who had stolen her life. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't confront them. She took out her phone and recorded everything. Then she walked back to her car and drove home. When Jerome came back at midnight, smelling like Constance's perfume, Amara was in bed pretending to sleep. He didn't even bother to shower this time. He just climbed in beside her and fell asleep immediately, satisfied and content. Amara lay in the darkness, her mind racing. Her husband was sleeping with her father's wife. The woman who had kept her as a slave. The woman who had paid her mother to disappear and then watched her die of grief. The betrayal was complete. Every person who should have protected her had failed her. Every person who should have loved her had used her. But Amara was done being used. Tomorrow she would find a lawyer. Tomorrow she would find a private investigator. Tomorrow she would start building her case. And when she was ready, she would burn it all down. The Kensington family had been powerful in Atlanta for 4 generations. It started with Harold Kensington in the 1920s, a man who made his fortune in textiles and used that fortune to buy influence, property, and respect. His son James expanded into real estate. His grandson William, Amara's father, turned the family business into a massive investment firm that touched every major development in the Southeast. By the time William Kensington died 5 years ago, the family was worth over $200 million. And Amara had spent her life scrubbing their floors. She sat in the office of attorney Denise Franklin, a sharp woman in her 50s with a reputation for taking on cases that mattered. Amara had found her through careful research, looking for someone who wouldn't be intimidated by the Kensington name. "Let me make sure I understand," Miss Franklin said, looking at the documents Amara had brought. "You believe you are the biological daughter of William Kensington. You have DNA evidence that supports this. And you have proof that Constance Kensington paid your mother to give you up and then kept you as a household servant." "Yes," Amara said. "And you also believe your husband is having an affair with Constance Kensington and that they may be committing financial crimes together." "I don't believe it. I know it. I have video." Miss Franklin leaned back in her chair. "This is quite a situation, Miss Thompson. Can you help me?" "I can. But I want to be clear about something first. Cases like this get messy. The Kensingtons have money and lawyers and connections. They will fight you every step of the way. They will try to destroy your reputation. They will call you a liar and a gold digger and worse. You need to be prepared for that." Amara thought about 20 years of being called girl, and you there. She thought about her mother's desperate letters and the cold responses. She thought about Jerome and Constance's arms. "I'm prepared," she said. Miss Franklin nodded. "Good. Then let's get started. First, we need to confirm the DNA evidence will hold up in court. The test you took was consumer grade. We need a legal DNA test with proper chain of custody. Do you have any biological samples from William Kensington? He's been dead for 5 years. Then we need to establish the genetic link through existing family members. If we can get DNA from Bridget Kensington, we can prove you share a father." "Bridget will never agree to that." "She won't have to. Leave that to me." Miss Franklin made a note. "Second, we need to investigate the financial crimes. You say your husband is the accountant for the Kensington estate. Do you have access to any of his files?" Amara shook her head. "He keeps everything at the office and on his laptop. Both are password protected. Then we'll need to hire a forensic accountant and a private investigator. It will be expensive." "How expensive?" Miss Franklin named a figure that made Amara's stomach drop. It was more than she made in a year. More than she had in savings. "I don't have that kind of money," Amara said quietly. "No, but you might have it soon. If you are William Kensington's daughter, you are entitled to a share of his estate. Possibly a significant share depending on what we find. I'm willing to take this case on contingency." I'll cover the upfront costs, and when we win, I take 30% of your settlement. When we win. Not if. Miss Franklin smiled. I don't take cases I can't win, Miss Thompson. And I've been waiting a long time for someone to take on Constance Kensington. They shook hands. Over the next 3 weeks, Amara learned things about the Kensington family she had never known. William Kensington had married Constance Harwell when they were both 24. It was a society wedding covered in all the papers. But 6 months before that wedding, William had been in love with someone else. Ruth Thompson. Ruth was a secretary at Kensington Investments. She was beautiful and smart and came from nothing. William fell for her hard. According to letters the PI found in old archives, he had planned to propose. But Harold Kensington, William's father, would never allow it. Ruth was poor. Ruth was black. Ruth was unacceptable. Harold threatened to disinherit William completely if he didn't marry someone suitable. William caved. He left Ruth and married Constance. But Ruth was already pregnant. When Constance found out 3 months after her wedding, she was furious. She went to Ruth herself with an offer, $50,000 and a guarantee that William would never know about the child. Ruth refused at first. Then Constance threatened to destroy her. To make sure she never worked again, never got an apartment again, never had a life. Ruth took the money. She had no choice. But she didn't disappear. She stayed nearby, hoping to catch glimpses of her daughter. Hoping that someday somehow she could get her back. That's when Constance made her cruelest decision. She took baby Amara and brought her to the estate. Not as a daughter. Not as family. As a servant. She raised William's child under his own roof, watching him look at her every day and not know the truth. Watching the little girl clean and scrub and serve the family she actually belonged to. It was punishment. For William. For Ruth. For everyone who had made Constance feel like second choice. And William never knew. Or if he suspected, he never had the courage to ask. Ruth died a year later. Heart failure brought on by severe depression. She was 24 years old. Amara read the PI's report in her car, parked outside her apartment. She read about her mother's life and death. She read about her father's cowardice and her stepmother's evil. Then she put her head on the steering wheel and cried. When she was done, she wiped her face and went inside. Jerome was on the couch watching television. He barely looked up when she came in. Hey, he said. Hey. She sat down next to him. She watched him watch his show. She thought about all the nights she had trusted him, loved him, believed in him. Jerome, she said, do you love me? He glanced at her, surprised by the question. What? Yeah, of course. Because you haven't touched me in 3 months. You're never home. You barely look at me anymore. He shifted, uncomfortable. Work's been busy. You know how Constance is. Yeah, Amara said. I know exactly how Constance is. She went to the bedroom and closed the door. Soon she thought. Very soon they would all know exactly who Amara Thompson really was. And they would never forget it. Amara decided to follow her husband one more time. It had been a week since her meeting with Attorney Franklin. The investigation was underway. The forensic accountant was reviewing financial records that the PI had obtained through legal channels. Everything was moving forward. But Amara needed to see it again. She needed to look at the betrayal with clear eyes, without the shock and pain of the first time. She needed to burn the image into her memory so that she would never waver in what she was about to do. It was a Friday evening. Jerome had said he was going to a business dinner with clients. He drove straight to the Kensington estate. Amara parked in her usual spot and made her way through the grounds. She knew this property better than anywhere on earth. She knew where the security cameras were and how to avoid them. She knew which doors were always unlocked and which windows gave the best views. Tonight they were in the master bedroom. Amara stood in the garden below, hidden by the tall hedges, and watched through the window. The curtains were open. Constance never closed them because she never imagined anyone would be watching. She owned 50 acres of private land. She felt untouchable. That arrogance would be her downfall. Jerome and Constance were on the bed. They were talking more than touching tonight. Amara couldn't hear the words, but she could see the intimacy. The comfort. This wasn't a new affair. This was a relationship. How long, she wondered. How long had this been going on? She thought back to when she first met Jerome. He had just started working for the Kensingtons. He was charming and attentive and he made her feel special. He said he loved her. He said he wanted to save her from her life of servitude. But maybe that was never true. Maybe Constance had sent him. Maybe the whole relationship was a setup from the beginning. Keep Amara close. Keep her controlled. Make sure she never starts asking questions. The thought made her sick. She watched Jerome get up from the bed and walk to the dresser. He poured 2 glasses of wine and brought them back. He handed one to Constance and they clinked glasses, smiling at each other. Then Constance said something that made Jerome laugh. A real laugh, open and happy. He never laughed like that with Amara. She realized now that he never laughed at all when he was with her. He was always distracted, always checked out, always somewhere else. He was always here. Amara took out her phone and recorded for 5 minutes. Then she put it away and walked back to her car. She didn't cry this time. She was past tears. When she got home, she poured herself a glass of wine and sat in the dark living room. She thought about her life. Her childhood in that house, surrounded by wealth that was never hers. Her mother dying of grief, alone and abandoned. Her father looking at her with sad eyes and never saying a word. And now her husband, the one person she thought she could trust, in bed with the woman who had orchestrated all of it. The doorbell rang. Amara froze. It was almost 11 at night. No one came over this late. She went to the door and looked through the peephole. Bridget Kensington was standing on her doorstep. Amara opened the door slowly. Bridget? The woman looked nervous. She was dressed simply, jeans and a sweater, none of her usual designer clothes. Her face was pale. Can I come in? Bridget asked. Please. I need to talk to you. Amara hesitated. She had no reason to trust anyone from that family. But something in Bridget's eyes made her step aside. They sat across from each other in the living room. Bridget looked around at the small apartment, so different from the mansion she had grown up in. I know you hate us, Bridget said. I know you have every reason to. But I need you to know that I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Didn't know what? Bridget took a shaky breath. I found something. In my mother's papers. She keeps everything locked up, but she's been so distracted lately. I found your birth certificate, Amara. The real one. Amara's heart stopped. You're my sister, Bridget said, tears filling her eyes. My father was your father. And my mother, she kept you as a servant. In your own home. I grew up with a sister and I didn't even know it. When did you find out? 3 days ago. I've been trying to make sense of it. Trying to understand how my mother could do something so evil. She looked at Amara. I'm so sorry. For all of it. For every time I walked past you without seeing you. For every time I let my mother treat you like nothing. You were my family and I didn't protect you. Amara sat very still. She didn't know how to feel. Bridget had never been cruel to her, but she had never stood up for her either. She had been complicit in her silence. Why are you telling me this? Amara asked. Because you deserve to know the truth. And because. Bridget hesitated. Because there's more. I think my mother is stealing from the estate. I've seen documents that don't add up. Large transfers to accounts I don't recognize. I think she's been doing it for years, ever since my father died. Amara thought about the forensic accountant's report that was still in progress. Do you have proof? Some. I made copies. Bridget reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. I don't know what you're planning, Amara. But whatever it is, I want to help. I know that doesn't make up for anything. I know you might never forgive me. But I can't just stand by while my mother destroys everything. Amara took the folder. She didn't open it yet. Your mother isn't working alone, she said. What do you mean? My husband, Jerome. He's been helping her. They've been. She couldn't say the rest. Bridget's face went white. Oh my God. Amara, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Just help me stop them. They looked at each other across the coffee table. Half-sisters who had lived under the same roof for over 2 decades without knowing it. One raised as a princess, one raised as a slave. Different in every way. But in this moment they were united by the same goal. Taking down Constance Kensington. Bridget left an hour later. Amara locked the door behind her and leaned against it. She thought about trust. How easily it was broken. How hard it was to rebuild. She didn't know if she could trust Bridget. The woman could be playing her, reporting back to Constance, setting a trap. But Amara didn't think so. There was something in Bridget's eyes that looked genuine. Shame. A desperate need to make things right. Maybe she was a fool to believe it. Maybe this whole thing would blow up in her face. But she was done hiding. She was done being afraid. Constance Kensington had taken everything from her. Her mother. Her father. Her childhood. Her husband. Her whole life. Now it was time to take it back. The next 4 weeks were the busiest of Amara's life. Every day she went to her job at the hotel and cleaned rooms like nothing was different. Every night, she met with her attorney or the private investigator or the forensic accountant. She reviewed documents, made lists, built her case. And every night she came home to Jerome and pretended she didn't know. It was the hardest thing she had ever done. Looking at him over dinner, listening to his lies about where he had been and what he had done. He was so confident that she was clueless. So certain that she would never catch on. His arrogance made her angrier than his betrayal. The forensic accountant's report came in on a Tuesday. It confirmed what Bridget had suspected and more. Constance and Jerome had been embezzling from the Kensington estate for 3 years. They had created fake vendors and shell companies and submitted false invoices. They had diverted investment returns to hidden accounts. They had forged William Kensington's signature on documents created after his death. The total amount stolen was over $4 million. This is criminal fraud, Attorney Franklin said. We can take this to the authorities. They'll both go to prison. Not yet, Amara said. I want to confront them first. I want them to know exactly who brought them down. That's risky. They could try to destroy evidence or flee. They won't. They're too arrogant. They think they're untouchable. Amara's jaw tightened. I want to see the looks on their faces. Miss Franklin nodded slowly. All right. But we do this my way. At the next board meeting. In front of witnesses. So they can't spin the story later. The next board meeting was in 2 weeks. The Kensington Family Foundation met quarterly to discuss philanthropic initiatives. All the major players would be there: board members, lawyers, accountants, community leaders. It was perfect. In the meantime, the PI continued his investigation. He was looking for one final piece of evidence, something that would prove beyond doubt that Amara was William Kensington's daughter. He found it in an old storage unit. Ruth Thompson had kept meticulous records of her relationship with William. Love letters, photographs, hotel receipts, everything. After she died, her belongings were boxed up and put in storage. The rent was paid automatically from a small account she had left behind. 28 years later, those boxes were still there. The PI broke open the unit and found gold. There were photographs of William and Ruth together, young and in love. There were letters where he called her the love of his life, promised to marry her, wrote about the future they would have together. And there was one more thing. A letter from William to Ruth, dated 3 months after his wedding to Constance. I know about the baby. Constance told me everything. She says you took money to go away, but I don't believe that's the whole story. I need to see you. I need to understand. Please, Ruth, meet me at our place. This Friday at noon. I'll be waiting. The letter was never opened. It had been returned to sender, marked recipient deceased. Ruth had already died by then. She never knew that William had tried to reach her. She never knew that he wanted to understand. And William never knew his letter came back. He must have thought Ruth ignored him. He must have thought she didn't care. They had both died thinking they were unloved. Amara held the letter in her hands and felt a grief so deep it took her breath away. Her parents had loved each other. They had been torn apart by money and prejudice and Constance's cruelty. And in the end, they had both died alone, thinking they had been betrayed. But the truth was different. The truth was that Constance had manipulated everyone. She had lied to Ruth about William. She had lied to William about Ruth. She had kept them apart and watched them suffer and enjoyed every moment of it. The woman was a monster. Amara added the letter to her evidence file. It proved that William knew about her existence. It proved that he wanted to be part of her life. It proved that Constance had intercepted his attempts to reach Ruth and kept them apart. The case was almost complete. There was just one more thing she needed. Definitive DNA proof that would hold up in court. Bridget provided it. She brought Amara a hairbrush that had belonged to their father. It had been in storage since his death, forgotten, but still containing samples of his hair. The lab tested it against Amara's DNA and confirmed a parental match. 99.98% probability that William Kensington was Amara's biological father. That was it. The evidence was complete. Amara sat in Attorney Franklin's office and looked at the file that would change everything. DNA results. Birth certificate. Financial records. Testimony. Photographs. Letters. Everything she needed to prove who she was and what had been done to her. Are you ready? Miss Franklin asked. Amara thought about her mother dying of a broken heart. She thought about her father's sad eyes and his cowardice. She thought about 20 years of scrubbing floors in her own family's house. She thought about Jerome and Constance together, laughing at her, using her, throwing her away. Yes, she said. I'm ready. The board meeting was in 5 days. And when it was over, nothing would ever be the same. The morning of the board meeting, Amara put on armor. She chose her clothes carefully. A tailored black pantsuit that she had bought for this occasion. Simple gold earrings that had been her one indulgence over the years. Her natural hair styled in twists pulled back from her face. Minimal makeup. She wanted to look professional. Powerful. Like someone who belonged in that boardroom. Because she did belong. She was William Kensington's firstborn child. She was the rightful heir to his legacy. And today everyone would know it. Jerome had left early for the meeting. He didn't ask why Amara was dressed up. He didn't notice her hands shaking as she poured her coffee. He just kissed her cheek a quick, meaningless peck and walked out the door. An hour later, Amara drove to the Kensington estate for the last time. The boardroom was in the East Wing, a grand space with mahogany walls and oil paintings of previous Kensington generations. Amara had cleaned that room 1,000 times. She knew every inch of it. But she had never been allowed to sit at the table. Today she would. She arrived just as the meeting was starting. Attorney Franklin was already there, standing near the door with a briefcase full of evidence. The board members were taking their seats, 8 people who managed the Kensington Foundation's charitable work. Constance sat at the head of the table, elegant as always in a cream-colored suit. Jerome sat to her right, laptop open, ready to present the quarterly financial report. They both looked up when Amara walked in. Constance's face went cold. What is she doing here? This is a private meeting. Miss Thompson is here at my invitation, Attorney Franklin said smoothly. I represent her in a matter that concerns this board. I don't care who you represent. She's not a board member. She's not family. She has no right to be here. Actually, Amara said, and her voice was steady even though her heart was pounding, I have every right. She walked to the table and set down a folder. Inside was a single document. Her birth certificate. The real one. Not the falsified one the Kensingtons had created. The original, signed by the doctor who delivered her, filed with the state, hidden for 28 years. Father, William David Kensington. Mother, Ruth Ann Thompson. What is this? Constance demanded. It's my birth certificate. The real one. It shows that William Kensington was my father. Amara looked around the table at the shocked faces. I am William Kensington's firstborn child. I am his heir. The room erupted. Board members started talking over each other. Constance's face went white, then red. Jerome stared at Amara like he had never seen her before. This is ridiculous, Constance said. It's obviously a forgery. She's just some servant trying to steal from the family. It's not a forgery, Attorney Franklin said. We have DNA evidence confirming that Amara Thompson shares genetic markers with William Kensington. We have a sample from William's hairbrush tested against Miss Thompson's DNA. The match is 99.98%. She pulled out the DNA report and passed it around the table. We also have letters written by William to Ruth Thompson, Amara's mother, acknowledging the pregnancy and expressing his desire to be part of the child's life. Letters that were intercepted by Constance Kensington and never delivered. More documents came out of the briefcase. The board members paged through them, their expressions shifting from skepticism to shock to something like horror. Mrs. Kensington paid Ruth Thompson $50,000 to relinquish custody of baby Amara, Franklin continued. But she didn't place the child for adoption. Instead, she brought Amara into this house and raised her as a servant. In her own father's home. Cleaning his floors. Serving his meals. For 20 years. The room was silent now. Everyone was staring at Constance. Is this true? Asked one of the board members, an older woman named Patricia Givens. Constance's composure cracked for just a moment. Then she gathered herself. William had an affair before our marriage. I handled it. The child was provided for. Provided for? Amara's voice cut through the room. You kept me as a slave. You made me scrub your toilets and cook your food. You never let me sit at your table or go to a real school or have a single day where I felt like a human being. I was your husband's daughter, and you made me your property. Your mother was paid. She took the money willingly. You threatened to destroy her life if she didn't, and then you made sure she never got to see me again. She died at 24 years old from a broken heart. You killed her. Constance stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. I don't have to listen to this. I'm calling security. I wouldn't do that, Attorney Franklin said, because we haven't gotten to the best part yet. She pulled out the final documents. The financial records. The evidence of embezzlement. For the past 3 years, Constance Kensington and Jerome Thompson have been systematically stealing from the Kensington estate. They created fake vendors, submitted false invoices, and diverted funds to hidden accounts. The total amount embezzled is over $4 million. Jerome's face went gray. He looked at Constance, then at Amara, then back at the documents. "That's a lie," he said. "Constance, tell them it's a lie." But Constance was silent. She was staring at the bank records, the invoices, the proof of every transaction they had made. "We have also documented the personal relationship between Mrs. Kensington and Mr. Thompson," Franklin added. "Video evidence of their affair, which has been ongoing for at least 2 years. She didn't show the video. She didn't have to. The looks on their faces said everything. Patricia Givens spoke first. I don't even know what to say. I've known this family for 40 years. William was my friend. And now I find out he had another daughter and she was treated like." She couldn't finish. "The board needs to take immediate action," Attorney Franklin said. "Amara Thompson is entitled to her share of William Kensington's estate as his firstborn child. The embezzlement needs to be referred to law enforcement. And Mrs. Kensington should be removed from her position immediately." The board members looked at each other. Then one by one they nodded. It was over. Constance seemed to understand that. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, but 2 security guards were already there. Attorney Franklin had called ahead. "You can't do this to me," Constance hissed. "I built this family. I made us what we are." "You built it on lies," Amara said. "And now you'll pay for every single one of them." Jerome tried to follow Constance, but Amara stopped him. "Don't," she said. She pulled an envelope from her purse and pressed it into his hands. "These are divorce papers. Sign them and don't contest anything, and I won't push for criminal charges against you." "Amara, please. I can explain." "There's nothing to explain. You used me. You betrayed me. And now you'll leave my life and never come back." He looked at the papers. Then at her. She saw the moment he realized she was serious. The moment he understood that she was not the same woman he had married. That woman had been beaten down, grateful, easy to control. This woman was none of those things. Jerome signed the papers. Amara took them back and walked out of the boardroom. She was done with that house. She was done with all of them. But she wasn't done with her life. Not even close. Her life was just beginning. The aftermath was chaos. News of the board meeting spread fast. By the next morning, local reporters were calling Attorney Franklin's office. By the end of the week, the story was everywhere. Kensington heir hidden as servant for 28 years. Socialite embezzled millions from family foundation. DNA test reveals shocking family secret. Amara refused all interviews. She didn't want to be a spectacle. She didn't want to perform her pain for strangers. But the truth was out and it couldn't be put back. Constance was arrested 3 days after the board meeting. The police found evidence that she had been moving money to offshore accounts, preparing to flee. She was denied bail as a flight risk. The image of her in handcuffs, being led out of her mansion, was on the front page of every newspaper in Atlanta. Jerome was not arrested as Amara had promised. But he was fired from the Kensington Foundation, and no other firm in the city would touch him. He became unemployable overnight. He called Amara a dozen times, leaving messages that ranged from apologetic to angry to desperate. She deleted everyone without listening. Bridget came to see her on the 4th day. She looked exhausted, her eyes red from crying. "I don't know what to say," Bridget said. "Everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie." "I know the feeling," Amara said. "I keep thinking about all those years. You were in the house with us. You were my sister. And I treated you like you weren't even there. You didn't know. That's not an excuse. I should have questioned things. I should have been kinder. I should have seen you." Amara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You're seeing me now." Bridget looked up. There were tears on her face. "What do you need from me? I'll do anything. I want to make this right. I don't know if that's possible. Too much has happened. But we can try to move forward. Together." They hugged for the first time in their lives. It was awkward and stiff, 2 women who shared blood but had no shared history. But it was a start. Over the next few weeks, the legal process moved forward. Attorney Franklin filed claims on Amara's behalf for her portion of the Kensington estate. As William's firstborn child, she was entitled to a significant share, and given the circumstances of how she had been treated, the courts were sympathetic. The board of the Kensington Foundation voted unanimously to support her claim. They also voted to reform the organization's leadership and practices. Patricia Givens became the interim chair. "Your father would be proud of you," Patricia told Amara one afternoon. "He was a flawed man, but he cared about doing good in the world. He would have wanted you to carry on that legacy." Amara wasn't sure how she felt about that. William Kensington had let her grow up as a servant. He had looked at her with sad eyes but never said a word. He had been too weak to stand up to his father or his wife. But he had also tried to reach Ruth before she died. He had wanted to know his daughter. Maybe, in another life, things would have been different. She would never know. But she could honor the best parts of him while acknowledging the worst. The divorce from Jerome was finalized in record time. He signed everything without contest, just as she had demanded. In return, she didn't pursue criminal charges against him for the embezzlement. He got to stay out of prison. But he got nothing else. The apartment was hers. The bank accounts were hers. Everything they had built together, which wasn't much, since he had been funneling money to his secret life with Constance, was hers. Jerome called one last time the day the divorce was final. "I know you hate me," he said. "I know I deserve it. But I want you to know that I did love you. In the beginning. Before Constance. I saw something in you, Amara. Something special. Then why?" Her voice was flat. "Why did you do it?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Because Constance made me feel powerful. Like I was somebody. You made me feel responsible. Like I had to be better than I was. That's not my fault." "I know. It's mine. I'm sorry." "I know that doesn't mean anything, but I am." Amara hung up. She didn't hate Jerome. She didn't feel anything for him at all anymore. He was just a stranger who had wasted 6 years of her life. But she also didn't wish him well. 2 months after the board meeting, Constance's trial began. The charges were extensive. Embezzlement, fraud, forgery, unlawful imprisonment, and more. The prosecution had testimony from board members, financial experts, and the PI who had uncovered the evidence. They also had Amara. She took the stand on the 3rd day of the trial. She wore another tailored suit, deep blue this time. She looked at Constance sitting at the defense table and felt nothing but cold determination. "Please tell the court about your childhood in the Kensington household," the prosecutor said. And Amara told them. She told them about being brought to the estate at 3 years old. About cleaning floors and serving meals and being told to be grateful. About never being allowed to eat at the family table or go to good schools or have her own clothes. About being called girl instead of her name. About being her father's daughter and being treated like property. "Did you know William Kensington was your father?" the prosecutor asked. "No. I was never told. I was never shown any kindness or given any hint. I grew up thinking I was an orphan who owed everything to the Kensingtons." "And how did you eventually discover the truth?" "I found documents. Then I took a DNA test." She looked directly at Constance. "And then I discovered that my husband was having an affair with the woman who had kept me as a slave for 20 years. The courtroom murmured. Constance's face was stone. "What do you want from these proceedings, Miss Thompson?" Amara thought about the question. She thought about her mother's letters, begging to see her child. She thought about her father's sad eyes. She thought about all the years she had lost. "I want justice," she said. "For myself. For my mother. For everyone who was hurt by this woman's cruelty. I want her to face the consequences of what she did." She stepped down from the stand. As she walked past Constance, the older woman grabbed her arm. "You think you've won?" Constance hissed. "You're nothing. You'll always be nothing." Amara looked at her. "No," she said quietly. "I'm your husband's daughter. I'm the heir you tried to erase. And after today you'll spend the rest of your life knowing that I beat you." She pulled her arm free and walked out of the courtroom. Behind her, Constance started to shout something, but the guards restrained her. Amara didn't look back. The verdict came 3 weeks later. Constance Kensington was found guilty on all counts. Embezzlement, fraud, forgery, falsifying documents. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. The sentencing was scheduled for the following month. The prosecution asked for 15 years. Given Constance's age and lack of prior criminal record, the judge settled on 12 years in federal prison. Amara was in the courtroom when the sentence was read. She watched Constance's face crumble, watched the guards lead her away in handcuffs. The woman who had controlled every aspect of her life for so long was now powerless. It should have felt triumphant. It should have felt like victory. Instead, Amara just felt tired. She went home to her apartment and sat in the dark for a long time. She thought about everything that had happened. The secrets, the betrayals, the courtroom battles, the media attention. It was over now. Justice was served. Constance was in prison. Jerome was gone. The truth was out. So why did she feel so empty? The answer came to her slowly. Revenge was satisfying, but it wasn't enough. Bringing down Constance had been necessary, but it didn't give Amara back the years she had lost. It didn't bring her mother back to life. It didn't change the fact that she had grown up without love, without family, without belonging. She had won. But she still felt alone. The next morning she called Attorney Franklin. "I want to do something with the money," Amara said. "The inheritance. The settlement. All of it. I don't want to just sit on it." "What did you have in mind?" Amara thought about her childhood. The loneliness. The work. The feeling that she didn't matter. "There are other kids out there like me," she said. "Kids who are being used and exploited. Kids in foster care or bad situations. I want to help them." They talked for 2 hours. By the end, Amara had the outline of a plan. Over the next 3 months, she worked with lawyers and nonprofit consultants to establish the Ruth Thompson Foundation. Named after her mother, the organization would provide resources for children in foster care, domestic servitude situations, and exploitative labor conditions. Education funds. Legal advocacy. Safe housing. Everything that Amara had needed and never received. The Kensington Foundation board voted to provide matching funds. Patricia Givens became a mentor, helping Amara navigate the world of philanthropy. Bridget got involved too. She took over managing the family's legitimate business interests, working to restore the Kensington name through honest work. The sisters talked regularly now. They would never have a normal relationship, there was too much history for that, but they had something. "I'm proud of you," Bridget said one day, "for everything you've done. For turning this into something good." "I didn't have a choice," Amara said. "I couldn't just be angry forever. I needed a purpose. That's what makes you different from my mother. She only knew how to destroy. You know how to build." Amara thought about that for a long time. Meanwhile, Jerome had moved away. She heard through mutual acquaintances that he had gone to Florida, that he was working some low-level accounting job, that he had lost everything. His reputation. His money. His future. Good, Amara thought. Then she stopped thinking about him at all. She was too busy building her new life. The Ruth Thompson Foundation launched 6 months after the trial ended. The opening event was held at a community center in downtown Atlanta. Over 200 people attended, social workers, educators, foster families, and the first group of young people who would receive scholarships. Amara stood at the podium and looked out at the crowd. She thought about the girl she used to be, invisible and voiceless, scrubbing floors in a mansion while her father watched and said nothing. That girl was gone. "My mother Ruth Thompson died believing she was alone," Amara said. "She died believing that no one cared about her or her daughter. But she was wrong. Because I'm here. And I'm going to make sure that no child ever feels the way I felt. No child ever feels invisible. No child ever feels like they don't matter." The applause was long and loud. When it ended, a man approached her. He was tall and kind-looking with a warm smile. He introduced himself as Derek Morrison, an architect who was interested in designing transitional housing for the foundation. "That was a beautiful speech," he said. "Your mother would be proud." "Thank you. Do you work with nonprofits often?" "When I can. I believe in building things that matter." He paused. "Would you be interested in meeting to discuss some ideas?" "No pressure. Just coffee." Amara looked at him. He had honest eyes. He seemed genuine. And there was no rush, no agenda, just an invitation. "Coffee sounds good," she said. He smiled. She smiled back. It was the first time in a long time that she had smiled at a man without wondering what he wanted from her. Maybe this was what moving forward felt like. Not forgetting the past but not being trapped by it either. Building something new on top of the ruins. Ruth Thompson had died of a broken heart. But her daughter's heart was still beating. And it was full of purpose. 1 year later, Amara stood on the balcony of her new apartment and looked out over the city. So much had changed. The Ruth Thompson Foundation was thriving. They had provided scholarships to over 50 young people, established 2 transitional housing facilities, and launched a legal advocacy program that had already freed a dozen children from exploitative situations. The work was hard and often heartbreaking, but it was meaningful in a way that nothing else in Amara's life had ever been. She was no longer invisible. When she walked into a room, people saw her. They listened to her. They respected her. She had become someone. But more than the professional success, more than the money or the recognition, what Amara treasured most was the peace she had found. She no longer woke up angry. She no longer carried the weight of all those years of injustice. She had done what she needed to do, exposed the truth, punished the guilty, claimed what was hers, and now she was free to let it go. Constance was serving her 12-year sentence in a federal prison in Alabama. Amara never visited. She never wrote. She had nothing left to say to the woman who had tried to destroy her. Jerome had faded into obscurity. Last she heard, he was on his third job in a year, struggling to make ends meet. The charm that had won Amara over had apparently stopped working once there was no money or power behind it. She felt no satisfaction at his downfall and no sympathy either. He simply didn't matter to her anymore. Bridget had become a regular part of Amara's life. They had lunch once a week, talking about the foundation, the family business, and slowly, carefully, their own complicated feelings. They would never be close the way sisters who grew up together were close. But they had built something real out of the wreckage. And then there was Derek. He had been patient with her in a way that Jerome never was. He didn't push or demand or assume. He asked questions and listened to the answers. He showed up when he said he would. He respected her boundaries and celebrated her victories and gave her space when she needed it. 6 months ago, after dozens of coffee dates and dinners and long walks, Amara had finally let herself trust him. It was terrifying. After everything she had been through, opening her heart again felt like jumping off a cliff. But Derek had caught her. Every time she flinched or pulled away, he was still there, steady and sure. "You're worth waiting for," he told her once. "Whatever time you need, I'm here." She had cried when he said that. Not because she was sad, but because she had never heard those words before from anyone. Now they were planning a trip together. Nothing serious, just a week in Savannah. But it felt like a big step. It felt like trust. It felt like the beginning of something real. Amara's phone rang. It was Patricia Givens. "I wanted to let you know," Patricia said. "The city council approved the zoning for the new youth center. Construction can start next month." "That's wonderful news. Thank you for pushing it through. Thank you for the vision. Your mother would be amazed at what you've built in her name." After they hung up, Amara thought about her mother. Ruth Thompson, who had died at 24, alone and heartbroken. Ruth, who had never seen her daughter grow up or achieve anything or find happiness. But Amara believed that somehow Ruth knew. Somehow Ruth was watching and was proud. She had named the new youth center the Ruth Thompson Center for Hope. It would provide after-school programs, counseling, job training, and support services for at-risk young people. It would be a place where kids who felt invisible could be seen. Where kids like Amara could find their way. The doorbell rang. Derek was there, holding flowers and smiling. "Ready for dinner?" he asked. "Almost. Come in for a minute." He stepped inside and looked around. "I still can't believe this view." Amara had bought the apartment with her inheritance money. It was modest by Kensington standards but beautiful by any measure. High ceilings, big windows, a balcony overlooking the city. A place that was entirely hers. "I remember the first time I saw you," Derek said. "At the foundation launch. You were up at that podium talking about your mother and I thought, this woman is remarkable. You didn't even know me. I knew enough. I knew you had been through something terrible and turned it into something beautiful. That's rare, Amara. That takes a strength that most people don't have." She looked at him. Honest eyes. Warm smile. A man who saw her and valued her and never tried to change her. "Thank you," she said. "For being patient. For not giving up on me." "Never." He kissed her forehead. "Ready to go?" "Yes." They walked out together into the evening. The city spread out before them, full of lights and possibility. Somewhere out there, children were being helped by the foundation that bore her mother's name. Somewhere out there, women who had been invisible were finding their voices. And here, in this moment, Amara was exactly where she was supposed to be. She thought about the girl who used to scrub floors in that mansion. The girl who was told she was nothing, would always be nothing, should be grateful for scraps. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her worth. A woman who had claimed her birthright and built her own legacy. A woman who had turned pain into purpose and revenge into redemption. Amara Thompson, daughter of William Kensington and Ruth Thompson. Sister. Philanthropist. Survivor. Rising queen. Her story wasn't over. There was still so much to do, more children to help, more systems to change, more love to give and receive. But the hardest part was behind her. She had walked through fire and come out stronger. And now, finally, she was free.